In order to succeed, you must fail so that you know what not to do next time. Anthony J. D'Angelo. My friends, we see everything down for the day going in the right direction. Why is that? Because in most of these, we are in down trades right now. Let's first look at the S&P 500. We jumped into a down trade back 2 days ago on the 14th. And things have been moving in that direction. We have a ways to go yet in order to hit our profit parameter at 3.70%. That's down 14.5, $14.50. 1,450 ticks as it's listed on this little what they call prediction and measurement tool. You find it over here on this side of the page. You go to the short one, pops it up on the screen, fill it out using your ATR. By the way, I had a question from someone because we did change things up a little bit from that training that we have at the website on how to set up our chart. They were asking, how do you set the ATR up? Very easily. You go to indicators, you go to average true range, you just put it in, it'll pop up, average true range, you hit it. I'll then close this. It pops it up on your screen. You see it right there. Now what you do is you go over here to the settings and you move it. And you move it into an existing panel above. Boom, there it is. I changed the color on it to a lighter color. And in fact, what I'm going to do is remove it. You can see what I did here is I really lightened it up so it didn't show a lot on the screen. But I put it in the same box as the STC. And again, that's what you do. You don't have to change any of the other settings. Everything remains the same. I did change the color up a little bit. You can do that under visibility. No, you do it under style right here. And again, I just, monkeyed around with it a little bit. You can leave it in that blue color if you so wish. Easy enough to do. I took out the bands that I originally put up with the candlesticks just because the only thing I'm really interested in is the number. And you can see over there by ATR 7.25. Well, bingo, look at that. 725 right there, $7.25 or 725 ticks. That's my loss parameter. That is one ATR, one of the average true range, twice that for the profit. You might say, Tom, why don't you use one? Well, I'm giving myself the leeway that if things move in the wrong direction, I'm limiting my loss to what it's been moving around on average as far as the daily range. And then twice that for my profit parameter. So it's a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Why do we do it that way? Well, because it seems to work over and over and over again, and using the average true range for setting that profit and loss band is a good way to do it because it's based on the most recent historic range of price. That's why we do it. So let's jump into these charts, see where we are for the day. Down 1.14%, moving in the right direction on our chart. Hopefully we're going to continue to see that down movement now that we're below the 200 EMA and moving in the right direction. We are going to stay there. We look at the 2-day. It's heading down also below the 200 EMA. Where are we on the weekly? When we look at the weekly, we can see that again, it is a down week. It is some indecision there because as we look at things, we can of course see that we've got a red spinning top. We're still above the 200 EMA on the weekly, still in the green there. So we do watch things closely, but again, our shorter two charts, the 2-day and the half-day, have us in that range. So we'll keep with it, see if it goes in the right direction and gives us a profitable trade. What about the Qs? Same kind of setup, jumped in a day ago, well, and now 2 days now on the 14th. And of course, that's moving in the right direction, down 1.67%. Same thing we see on the 2-day, same thing on the weekly. So stuff's going in the right direction there. What about 20-year bonds? Well, When we look at 20-year bonds, and this is the second question, and again, I like it when you guys ask me questions. Feel free to write to me anytime, cw@chartingwealth.com. I had another question about how long do you stay in a trade? Well, you stay in a trade, it really depends on the amount of experience that you have in that particular stock or ETF, and the kind of rules that you've learned that work in that stock and ETF. Now, if you ask me, hey, Thom, how do I, in general, make my decisions? Well, in general, I like to stay in a trade until, in general, I either see things go from red to green, and then I pull the trade and get out, like we see on 20-year bonds here, or when I see a candle go from red to green, which would have gotten us out here. That was just a few days after we jumped into that trade. We would have had a little small profit there, maybe 0.5% or so, if that. We stayed in for any number of reasons that I've explained over the last few days. Had to do with the fact that we had a red STC, that things were sliding sideways. Also, when we looked at where we were on the 2-day, we see that the 2 days very much in the red. And of course, what have we had happen? Well, we went from red to green during this period. Now that happened later, not early on, but there were reasons that we talked about that we stayed. And even though we had the green candle, we didn't have our loss parameters. We were still red. And now that we went into green here, typically I'm out there too. However, I did a little bit more study and I looked at where we were on the volume. I saw the volume really pump up on this down move that hammered down for us. And then the volume started reducing, and it's continued to reduce even with some of these up movements still well below the red line and well below our loss parameter. So I have stayed in longer than I typically do. So I have some reasons for it. I have some experience with it, and I wanted to use this also for you guys as sort of a learning tool to look at how you make your decisions. Now, things could pop up tomorrow morning, wipe all this off, and get us out of the trade completely, or this up movement could be dying and getting ready to roll over and head down. And what do we have helping push that? Of course, we have that weekly chart now heading down, and that's a big wave pushing things down. So we'll see how things go for us. We could have, of course, gotten out here. Some of you did when we got very, very close to our profit parameter. That happened in the morning on the 13th, and then, of course, it popped up that afternoon. You could have pulled it any time then. Well, it didn't really pop up that much, but it went into almost a doji there, showing lots of indecision. You could have popped out there too. So all sorts of possibilities. And so much of your decision-making process is going to be based on what? The experience you have. And particularly the experience in those ETFs and stocks that you track on your own on a daily basis. That's why we say 10 to 15 minutes each and every day learning the personalities of the stocks and ETFs for which you have interest. Now, let's move away from here. Go to gold. Boom! We closed that trade. It was beautiful. Down 1.58%, $2.50 down move in gold. We set our profit and loss parameters. That happened in just a day and a half. That's how beautiful it can be. Could you stay in? Well, of course you could. You could have sold half your trade if you wanted, bifurcated it, and you could stay in for another ATR. You could make it 3 times. Stay in longer if you so wanted, and of course that's based on your experience, your risk profile, just what it is you want to do, or you can take your chunk out of the middle and be happy with it and move on. Nonetheless, it hit what we were looking for, and boom, it worked. Now remember, we don't have an inverse fund for gold, so this would have been for you a put trade. And if you don't know how to trade options, you need to learn. How do you learn? We have a great 3-part series, Option Made Simple, The Charting Wealth Way. and that is available at any of the 3 levels at our Patreon page. If you appreciate what we do, how about support us a little bit each month? It goes a long way. Now let's move from gold to Bitcoin. Where are we with Bitcoin? Well, let's look at tell you what, let's go to the 24-hour-a-day Bitcoin and show you where we are. This is and let's start with the weekly chart too. Show us where we are. Going to tighten this up a little bit, and you can see we're on Bitcoin. We really put the hammer down. Things then rotated up and back down, and again, we're just sort of in this range, sliding sideways. If you look at our Bitcoin future ETF on the weekly chart, you can also see where we're about at that 1820 mark, something like that, where we've sort of bottomed out here. And we've just sort of been sliding along now for many, many weeks. What is Bitcoin going to do? Don't know. We look back at this 24-hour-a-day Bitcoin chart. We are below the 200 EMA on that weekly. We want to see it, of course, push up through there. We look at the 2-day on Bitcoin. You see this long sideways slide here. Even though, and what happens when you have a long sideways slide? Things like the price percent oscillator, the MACD, the STC, which is a combination of stochastics, and the MACD, moving average convergence, divergence indicator. When you don't have a lot of converging and diverging, you just have sideways slippage, you get these kinds of STCs that don't do a whole lot for you. So we are waiting for Bitcoin to start chugging. We want to see it push up through, oops, did I just make it disappear? I did. There we go. We want to see it push through the 200 EMA on all 3 of these charts and really start to move. Well, that is not happening yet. We're just sort of in the doldrums there on Bitcoin. When is it going to happen? I can't tell you. I don't know. Hopefully it will. Hopefully cryptocurrencies aren't just being written off. I don't think they are, but it's got to find a bottom. It's then got to come up off that bottom. It's got to cross these 200 EMAs and give us reasons to jump in and ride them. And that's not happening right now. That's where we are, folks, for the day. Thank you again for the questions. I'm happy to answer them. I hope those answers are helpful. I hope you've been doing these practice trades with us. Hope you closed out that gold trade today, or maybe stayed in to see how much more you can do, or maybe sold half your position in your practice trade. Remember, not a stock calling service. We're an education firm. We want you to practice with us. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.